A man who dreamed versus a man who never dreamed. This fight between the Sword Saint and the Demon God is a fight that explores many ideas, but for me the biggest idea is dreams, with Choco only existing to fulfill the dreams of others, be it his mother's selfish greed or Nobunaga's lust for conquest, and Kamisumi living his entire life in service to achieving his own dream of reaching the gods, and how through meeting each other, one was able to live for their own dream for the first time, and the other able to take hold of that dream. And so that is of course what we shall explore today. So if you find yourself entertained at any point during the video, then consider liking, subscribing and ringing that bell. Anyway, on with the video. Match 4 of Tenkaichi opened as all fights do, with the appearances of our two competitors. First coming Kamisumi, the Sword Saint. His entry speech is nothing but praise, the Grandmaster of both Yagyu, Munenori and Unshin. He stands in a position of seniority over the other fighters. He is called godly, heralded as the reason swordsmanship even has a history, talked about as if a legend of long past. Yet when we actually see him, he is nothing but a sleeping and rather vulgar old man, dozing off in a trolley. As is explained, he can defeat strong opponents even in his sleep. Only if a truly mighty warrior is brought before him will he wake. In other words, this tournament is below him. Him being asleep could also mirror Musashi, maybe hinting about the heights Musashi himself will reach by the end of the tournament. Whatever the case, he is not depicted as what you'd expect from the strongest warrior alive, more like a bored old man living on just for the sake of being too stubborn to die. And maybe that is somewhere close to the truth. For our other fighter, Choco. He too is given a lot of glaze as he enters the arena. Those who are truly mighty need neither weapon nor protection from armour. Called a god of might, Choco is portrayed as godly in body, contrasting the divine skills of Kamizumi's sword. With his face hidden behind a demonic mask and an inhuman size and frame, to call him human seemed like a stretch. Unlike the so-called Sword Saint who acts like any senile old man does, Choco seems like the real deal. When the two come face to face, Kamisumi awakens. Sensing the power of his opponent, his old body is roused and ready to fight, a further testament to Choco's power, the two communicating through bloodlust. Now the arena for this fight is an iron cage. This could be seen as a metaphorical cage both fighters are within. Choco is in a cage as he only exists to be used by others. He has no true freedom to do what he wants. He was either a slave to his mother or to Nobunaga. For Kamisumi, his own human body is the cage, unable to reach the gods as he so desires, being shackled by being human. However, as this fight goes on, well, let's just say, maybe these cages will be broken. As the fight begins, Kamisumi essentially treats it as a bit of fun, wanting to see as much as Choco can offer before killing him. Now Choco at this point, as we will soon learn, is asleep, merely an obedient mindless dog doing whatever is asked of him. So when the commands of his master are to fight, then that is what he does, lunging forward with the pure intent to kill before the word begin is even uttered. As a Rikishi, he was, in other words, a guardian deity. They offered their lives for their villages, fighting in death matches over water so the people of their communities didn't need to risk their own lives. As such, fighting like this in a death match was normal for Choco, just a part of his everyday life. But to Kamisumi, this assault was nothing. He dodged and weaved with little effort at all, and of course did not draw his sword. You see, for the last 50 years, Kamisumi had forbade himself to draw his sword. A sword saint who hasn't the need to use his sword. It shows just how beneath him every other warrior has been. With ease he topples the mighty Rikishi using a technique that negates physical strength, the ultimate martial arts that allows the weak to defeat the strong, by completely negating strength as a factor at all. By declaring muscle to just excess flab before him, Kamisumi is essentially saying Choco is worthless, given so far all he exhibits is raw power. There's nothing more to this warrior, he is just a lapdog. There is nothing more to this fighter, just an attack dog with nothing but brute strength, and no real desires of his own. And so Kamisumi intends to finish him off, seeing no more entertainment in this match. Yet when he does, he also removes Choco's mask, tears away the face of the muscle-bound demon to reveal the human underneath, and by doing so, while he wakes up a true god in human form. As we learn in his flashback, Choco was born as an abnormal child, able to stand after a few days and able to understand speech in months, and on his head, a solid horn. He was beyond a normal human in everything, be it strength, intelligence or appetite, and advantage was taken of these gifts. He became known as the Onigami, the demon god, and with nothing else, not even a name given to him by his parents, he became the Onigami in body and in mind. Fighting as the Onigami, he plundered other villages and took their livelihoods away, all because that is what the Onigami should do, because that's all he could do. Hence why, when he defeated Choco, one of Nobunaga's retainers, he was asked by said retainer what his name was, and all he could answer was Onigami, to which the Rikishi called him pathetic. He has such strength, and yet his parents never gave him a name. It was as if he wasn't human, just a force of nature that cannot understand humans, or in other words, a god. And he made this abundantly clear by how he chooses to kill the man, crushing his head with an open palm, a godly feat no man could accomplish. All those in the village feared him. They were powerless to resist him. He took what he wanted and they allowed it. All they could do was thank him, but it was not out of genuine respect. One day he did as usual and tried to take, wanting the milk of a nursing mother, but something about the crying woman reminded him of his own mother. And then when he heard her call her baby by name, he thought back to the words of Choco the Rikishi. Even babies have names, so why didn't he? He asked his mother for one, but of course she didn't give him one. The Onigami doesn't need a name. He is the Onigami. He has no need for human things like names, as he is a demon god. He isn't human. When Nobunaga showed up angry at the death of his Rikishi, he sought to kill the Onigami. And what does this loving mother do? She throws her son under the bus in order to be saved. He was no child to her, just a tool, and now he'd have one final use, dying so she could live. But well, Nobunaga is not such an empathetic guy, and so instead, he shot them both down. However, the Onigami, due to his divine body, survived, and as such, he was given an ultimatum: die here or join Nobunaga. His mother may have died, he may have been freed from her chains, but now he had a new master and a new leash. No longer was he Onigami, the attack dog of his mother. He was given a new name, Choco, and instead became the dog of Nobunaga. Not even worthy of a new name, he was given the name of the past man to fill his role, Nobunaga treating him as just another tool. But what else could he do? It was do that or die. Before, his mother was his whole world. That small village was his cage, and she his shackle. But now under Nobunaga, the whole of Japan was his playground. He was now on a slightly longer chain, and so he wielded his strength in any way his empty heart desired. But it was never enough, because deep down he didn't know what he wanted or who he was. And so he just pillaged and killed, became an Onigami with his actions, as it was all he knew. His mother didn't raise him as a human, didn't show him kindness, or allow him to dream. She wanted him to be a monster, and so that's all he knew to be. But with no true dream or goals, Onigami feared he'd kill himself out of boredom, so using a specialised mask, put himself to sleep, hoping to wake up in a time where his boredom could be squashed. That luckily for him being the current story. He asked Kamisumi what he should call him, and Kamisumi doesn't care. But as Choco says, the name makes the man. A very obvious nod to how to Choco, a name is very important. How to him, his name is quite literally what makes him who he is. He is Choco the Rikishi of Nobunaga. It's less a name he was given, and more title he's inherited, but it's all he's got. Kamisumi gives the name of Bushin, the martial god, because like Choco, who is defined by his godly strength, only given purpose because of it, Kamisumi has made his identity synonymous with his skill. To become divine has been his only goal, and so he became defined by that dream. But unlike Choco, this was something he chose for himself. He didn't do it for somebody else. However, that is something that will soon change, symbolised by how Choco destroys the cage around them, allowing them both to be free of their shackles. Hence why only at this point does Kamisumi open the celestial gate and take one step into the divine. You see, from the moment he was born, Kamisumi wanted to make his blade divine. He wanted to be the strongest in history and unrivaled for 1,000 years. His dedication to the blade earned him results, making him arguably the greatest swordsman alive. But that was not enough. That was not his dream, to simply be the best. He wanted a legacy that would endure, and to do that he had to go beyond human means. He sought ways to improve, be it speed or his reaction times, but improving those things, well, that was all within the realm of man. If he could achieve it through practice and effort alone, then that was simply human power. So he forwent the sword and dedicated all his time to meditation. 10 years passed and he still hadn't grasped it, still hadn't gotten past human logic. And then he died. His heart stopped beating, and only then, in a state on the brink of death, did he reach the place where the god's voice reached. And by doing so he opened the gate and he came the closest he ever had to reaching his dream. And it is this power he uses to humiliate Choco, making him suffer the worst pain he's felt since Nobunaga gunned him down. And this power excites Choco. As he guessed when he put that mask on, his boredom would be satisfied, and so he tries to replicate that power, unleashing a divine blade of his own, one made of pure air. And what does this blade do? It cuts open Kamisumi's scabbard, revealing his blade for the first time in 50 years. The sword that never leaves its scabbard was forced to bare its fangs, its scabbard sliced open by a challenging blade. Choco forced Kamisumi to fight him for real. In a way, making Kamisumi draw his sword is the real test, and Choco, like it always did, took it by force, physically destroying the scabbard and making it impossible for Kamisumi to resheath it. In other words, he is stating that this match won't end until one of their swords kills the other. His own sword being this vacuum blade, a divine blade born not from skill and devotion like Kamisumi, but by his divine body, a feat no normal human body can replicate. In other words, something beyond the realm of man. Godly physique versus godly skill, both wielding a divine blade. And so the final fight begins, and Choco now is starting to grasp onto something he truly wants. As he says, he wants everything, as otherwise it won't be nearly enough. He isn't happy just being Nobunaga's dog anymore. When Kamisumi for the first time turns his blade on Choco, he finds his sword unable to cut the Oni before him. Bones so strong they cannot be cut, a genuine threat to the dream of being unrivaled. As he says, the gods have given him many great gifts, yet still not what he really wants. But through fighting and winning here, Choco believes himself to be closer to actually getting what he wants, and so he fights on. As he says to Kamisumi, "Could you give me enough of what I'm lacking?" But at the same time, Kamisumi feels the same way. Choco is the monster worthy of being his foe, the sacrifice for his legend. If he wins here, he can cement it, and achieve his own dream of becoming unchallenged for 1,000 years. As they clash, they both were at the peak of happiness. There was no malice in it, even if both sought to defeat the other. Kamisumi, rushing towards the final and most inner gate, grew younger as he fought. Using up the last of his life energy, he knew this would be his final fight. However, all he ever lived for was his dream. If he accomplishes it, then what more did he have left? To become truly divine is to complete his life, and by getting younger as he approaches death, it's almost as if he's making his whole life up until this point matter and going back to where it all began, where his dream was born. But at this point, the difference in strength was vast. Choco's super strong skeleton was the only thing keeping him alive, but he was not afraid nor angry. He was content with this death, for the sake of the country, in front of all these people, and to a martial god. It was a perfect way for an inhuman freak like him to go, because he saw no further reason in living. He didn't ever really get why to keep living. It's why he went to sleep in the first place. He wasn't his mother's happiness. If anything, he caused her to be miserable, at least in her own words. Sometimes she'd have happy dreams, but he never understood what she meant, and so he decided he can't have dreams because he doesn't know what it's like to be happy. Or so he thought. But then as he was sliced all over, he had a thought. Fluffy. Could that be what it means to be happy? To feel like you're wrapped up in that fluffiness? As he thinks this, he hears Kamisumi's words. Look sharp, eyes on me. Think about how you kill me. Nothing else. And listen well, my boy. You and I were born for us to meet. come along with me. And there it is. A purpose. One that does not exploit him, does not benefit somebody else's greed. A purpose born out of love. As Choco says, Kami Izumi doesn't feel prickly like everybody else. No, he feels fluffy. And with that realization, the Onigami's second mask fell away. He no longer needed to be a big scary Onigami, didn't need to be defined by his raw power and monstrous appearance. He could be seen for something beyond his superficial traits and be valued as a person and not as a demon. And by doing so, he too knocked on the door of the Celestial Gate. Both of them wanting to get stronger, to enjoy this fight more and more. Together they would become a legend, and together they would be unrivaled for 1,000 years. But Choco felt unworthy, felt he wasn't strong enough to meet Kami Izumi's expectations, not able to give the first person to accept him for who he truly was, the strength he was after. So he pushes further and further, all in order to live up to the genuine emotions of love shown to him by Kami Izumi. He admits he can't beat him, but says he will try his hardest, and so asks that if he does good enough, can Kami Izumi hold him in his arms as he dies. Kami Izumi basically has become the parental figure Choco never had, someone who doesn't see a tool in front of them but a person, one with a great potential. Kami Izumi was basically a father to Choco here. However, cruelly, they only just met each other before one of them was to die. And so Kami Izumi dealt what was intended to be the final blow. But Choco said it himself. He can't beat him, but he will try like hell to win, blocking the sword of his horn with his divine body. Even at this point, this fight was teaching the master something new. He always knew martial arts were fun, but he'd been naive. He'd barely reached the peak of what made them so great. Fascinating but frustrating. Both discovered a new joy here, but there was a key difference. Kami Izumi discovered this joy by achieving his dream, but Choco, he'd only now learnt how to dream. That said, Kami Izumi's dream had changed just slightly. It was no longer him that needed to be unchallenged for 1,000 years. No, now it was them. Passing on his sword, he entrusted this dream and legacy to Choco. In that short fight, Choco had grown to feel like a son to the old master, and so he passed it on to his new son, the dream of being the strongest. But that wasn't all he gave Choco, because as he died, Choco embraced him. In his last moments, he gave Choco the love and connection he never had, but always needed. In this fight, Kami Izumi did more for Choco than any parent or master ever did for him, because he saw him as a person with merit, with potential, the potential to become truly great. Pure respect and admiration for another, not what he could gain out of him. After passing on, Kami Izumi's students couldn't fathom why he would do this, didn't understand how this death could fulfill his dream. But Choco knew, and so he picked up that sword and walked out that arena with pride, finally having a dream to achieve and a purpose. He was no longer a tool or a vassal. He was Choco the warrior, with a dream to become unrivaled for 1,000 years. And if you want to support this channel even further, then perhaps pledge to my Patreon, or consider becoming a channel member, so you can get your name at the end of the video, like Rinjack9696, Mr. Sputum, Marimo, Jack Hanma, Patrick Glynn, and Sith Lord 906.